Be there for just 1 second.
Yeah.
You know, we set general policy here and sort of minimum standards in code, but we have delegated to the Department of Agriculture this rulemaking authority, and he's on this. I mean, he is very actively investigating, learning, ruling, and regulating, and this does not prohibit that department from adding additional rules and regulations as the product lines evolve, and we anticipate he'll do that. If we will fund him enough to enforce, then I think he is very well educated and prepared to respond to changing times.
That would be.
I don't think that this means everything else is legal. We have deferred to him or directed him, delegated to him the rulemaking authority as he feels is best for Georgians. So I have good confidence in him, and that this is setting the floor, so to speak, that he can tighten up anything he wants to. But go ahead, give me just a couple more minutes, and we're losing our quorum here.
Well, that would be terrific, especially to put weight and volume limits on products that can be inhaled, because that's a very serious form of consumption that can do more damage than possibly other forms. One thing is that the legal limit that is set in the rules can go by what the Fed's limit for consumable hemp products is. I think the General Assembly tried to take that out, but in the rules it says either the 0.3% or what the feds may pass. And there's been a lot of talk at the federal level of possibly upping that level to 1% from 0.3%. So I would hope that we might look at the legal limit staying at only 0.3% and not going to some possible federal level if they should choose to raise it. And then just lastly, SB 33 has been mentioned. I hope that SB 33 can make it through the legislature so that we can look at more than one type of THC, because there's so many kinds that get people high.
Thank you. Other questions? All right. Appreciate you being here. Let's try to wrap this up. Mike Griffin, you got anything to add to this? You hadn't already told us about the other sins that we're addressing here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Mike Griffin with Georgia Baptist Mission Board. We do support your legislation, Senate Bill 254. And again, you know, we talk about, to me, the greatest things that are most important in life is loving God and loving your neighbor. And I really believe that being concerned about public health and safety, it shows our love for God by loving our neighbor and being concerned about these kinds of issues. And we certainly appreciate these types of regulations to help in the public health and safety issue. And so thank you for your bill, and we ask the committee's favorable support for it today.
Thank you. Ashland Swan, sorry I skipped over there.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, my name is Ashland Swan. I'm here on behalf of SunMed CBD. We are the largest CBD retailer in Georgia as well as in the country. So I want to say by saying that I appreciate that there is concern for the health and well-being of Georgians. Obviously, that is a big part of why I got into this industry, because cannabis has helped my family, including myself, immensely. But I think that we are looking for a problem where one, frankly, does not exist. Let's be clear, cannabis in any form, including even high-dose THC products, have never killed anybody, not a single person. People don't usually, even after ingesting incredibly high doses, even need to go to the hospital. Compare that with, say, several glasses of tequila, and you will most definitely find yourself probably going to the hospital. And further, let's look at even a lot of the political events that we all attend, those that take place during session. Alcohol is free-flowing. I have seen as many important legislative discussions take place over a glass of wine as not. And so I do think that while the word intoxication is scary, sometimes it's a little bit of a false boogeyman. Bottom line is that this legislation will harm farmers, it will harm consumers, and it will harm small businesses. And those are the things I think that really need to be at the front of our minds when making these decisions. People who want THC will gain access to it, period. Now, I've heard this logic spouted by people who are in favor of deregulation of guns. They say that anybody who wants a gun will get access to it. Why not apply that same line of reasoning to THC then? So all legislation like this does is effectively drive consumers underground to a market that is unregulated and often unsafe. You have no idea what kind of additives are being added to the illegal THC market. We are actually seeing people die of fentanyl overdoses from fentanyl that is added to illegal THC. This is not protecting the health and well-being of Georgians. It's also causing serious access issues for those people who need those products, such as veterans, disabled people, and other people with chronic health conditions that rely on access to safe THC products in order to manage their chronic conditions. And hemp farmers, and I mean, really, let's just be real, Georgia farmers generally, it's hard being a farmer. My husband has been a farmer. It is not an easy life. Putting more restrictions on the people that put food on our tables and medicine in our hands is not what we need to be doing, especially in a space where we pride ourselves at being the state that is best to do business in, especially for agriculture. I think that runs entirely contrary to our entire messaging around business and ag. And then, of course, there are companies like mine. So yes, obviously, I'm here because this is going to negatively impact our business. Let's be real about that. But I would say first that our scientists would seriously debate some of these supposed effects and levels of intoxication that are due to certain products and at certain amounts. To the question that one of the senators asked, yes, weight does actually have a pretty big impact on how much it impacts you, and also the duration of use. So if you have been a long-term cannabis user, you will absolutely not be impaired to the same degree that somebody who is a novice cannabis user would be. Same as any other kind of medication that is meant to manage pain or anything of the like. So the idea that, you will a patient could drink one drink and then become a serious public safety risk is honestly a little bit overblown. And then the other thing I'd like to point out is that, companies like mine, not all companies, unfortunately, we work overtime to provide safe products. We do rigorous third-party lab testing. We have an entire fleet of scientists. And a lot of companies, quite frankly, do not. There are some bad actors in our industry that have painted a rather unfavorable opinion of some cannabis products. But I think that, as with anything, that's why we have to crack down on the bad actors and empower the good. All this does is drive the bad actors out of the market entirely. And a company like mine, we simply could not produce like Georgia-specific products. You see that across industries, right? That when you have state-specific regulations to an industry, that often tends to decrease that industry's participation in that state, even if they're from that state. People move and change business all the time.
Hold on 1 second.
Sure.
So the Department of Agriculture already has rules that say you can have 10 milligrams per gummy and 150 per packaging. This does not change that rule. Are you not able to do business here under the current rules proposed by the Department of Agriculture?
Well, I will admit, current Department of Agriculture regulations have already harmed our business. That is definitely true. There are several products that we do sell nationally that we are not able to sell here in Georgia, and it has already harmed our business. But to the understanding of the people at headquarters, this could also affect some of our tinctures as well, that it's not just because of the milligram per restrictions could also harm that. And I think another negative externality that we have to consider here too is my understanding is that many breweries currently produce these products that would not meet the standards of this current bill.
The only one I know of in Georgia meets these standards.
Yeah, okay. and that makes sense. I've been to many breweries myself where I see products that I know would not meet this current legislative standard.
Senator Albers has a question for you real quick before we wrap up. Senator
Thank
Albers,
you,
you're
Mr. Chairman.
recognized.
Thank you for your testimony. You said something, though, that struck me. You said that nobody has been to the hospital for consuming THC?
I don't believe I said nobody. I said that it's incredibly rare. Certainly no one has died. Yes, that is true. I think the only way you could die from THC is if somebody dropped a brick of it on your head.
Okay, so just tell you by just cursory research, thousands and thousands of people have gone to the hospital. Some people have died. And it has been from students to adults to senior citizens to children.
And
so I would encourage you to do just some basic Google searching before you say things like that.
And I would push back on that. We have had our scientific team. You have to understand, we have a team of multiple researchers at our headquarters in Tampa, and they have vetted all these things. Now, yes, people have died from consuming THC that is laced with other additives, such as fentanyl, or even, the solvent residue in some products. Solvent residue is a huge issue. And yes, that has actually caused hospitalizations and even deaths. So yes, has consuming a cannabis product ever led to death? Yes, but has THC intoxication ever caused a person to die? My understanding is that you would have to literally consume the equivalent of half of your own body weight in order for that to happen, which, can't say personally, but I think that that is pretty well impossible. But I would still say that it's nowhere near alcohol is. And I don't see the bills about alcohol the way I do see the bills about cannabis.
Okay.
And in fact, I know many users of cannabis who choose to abstain from using alcohol for exactly that reason.
Got it. Thank you for your comments. We got 5 minutes left in the room.
Absolutely.
So we got your gist, and we appreciate you sharing with us.
Thank you so much.
Catherine Russell, if you'll come forward, please. Catherine, I hate to pick on you. You didn't sign up, but I need you just to answer 2 questions for me. 3, really. I met with Catherine as we were drafting this, and you just wouldn't believe how much time the Ag Department has spent learning how other states are handling hemp products and how best to do it. And she was our what do we call you, our legislative counsel for this room, or our research assistant? You did all the background work as we went through the first iteration of this legislation. I just want to make sure where you and Commissioner Harper are. I know you're the brains in that operation, but and the legwork. Are you fine with us including Delta 8, Delta 10, and all forms of THC in your limitations, is like we did on the SB33?
So firstly, I would like to thank everybody for having me. I'm Catherine Russell, the Department of Agriculture. We really see ourselves as an agency who carries out what is directed to us from the legislature, first and foremost.
One thing I wanted to make sure in my communications with Commissioner Harper was that I didn't impose something on you that became impossible to enforce. Like,
right.
If we listed 55 ingredients or cannabinoids, you can't test for those. Am I right that you are equipped now to at least test for Delta 8, Delta 9, and Delta 10 with your current setup?
That is correct.
Okay.
Actually, our rules currently require that any COA test for a number of things beyond Delta 9 and Delta 8 and Delta